Are you an AP Gov or simply a history student that wants to learn more about Federalists and Anti-Federalists? Then buckle up, because we're about to dive into one of the most epic political showdowns in American history. This isn't just any ordinary debate. This is the clash that shaped the very essence of the United States. It's a story filled with passion, drama, and the kind of high stakes that make for a truly riveting tale. Forget Hamilton versus Burr. This is Federalists versus Anti-Federalists, and the stakes couldn't be higher. These were the titans of their time, each with their own vision for what America should become. On one side you had the Federalists, led by figures like Alexander Hamilton, who believed in a strong central government. On the other side, the Anti-Federalists, with leaders like Thomas Jefferson, who championed states' rights and feared a powerful central authority. We're talking about the very foundation of the United States government, the rules of the game, the whole shebang. The Constitution was more than just a document. It was a blueprint for a new nation, a set of principles that would guide the country for centuries to come. But getting to that point was no easy feat. Imagine a bunch of dudes in powdered wigs arguing about how much power the government should have. These debates were intense, filled with fiery speeches and impassioned arguments. Each side had its own vision for the future, and neither was willing to back down easily. That's basically what went down after the American Revolution. The war had been won, but now the real battle began: how to govern this new independent nation. The Articles of Confederation had proven too weak, and something stronger was needed. Should there be a strong central government, like a stern but loving dad who keeps everyone in line? George Washington himself was a symbol of this idea, a figure who could command respect and maintain order. Or should the states have more power, like a bunch of siblings who constantly bicker but ultimately love each other? The Anti-Federalists believed that local governments were closer to the people and better understood their needs. This wasn't just some abstract debate, it was about real issues that affected people's lives. The way the government was structured would determine everything from how laws were made to how taxes were collected. How would laws be made? Who would collect taxes? These were fundamental questions that needed answers. The Federalists argued for a centralized system where the federal government had the authority to make and enforce laws, while the Anti-Federalists wanted to keep that power closer to home. Could the government tell you what to do with your own land? Property rights were a huge concern, especially for farmers and landowners who feared that a strong central government might infringe on their freedoms. These were big questions, and the answers weren't easy. Pamphlets, newspapers, and public debates were filled with arguments from both sides, each trying to sway public opinion. So grab your tri-corner hats and get ready to rumble, because it's time to meet the players in this epic battle for the soul of a nation. We'll explore the key figures, the pivotal moments, and the lasting impact of this monumental debate. Stay tuned as we unravel the story of how the United States Constitution came to be and the fierce ideological battles that shaped it. Dudes in wigs, meet the Federalists. They love a strong government. First up, let's meet the Federalists, the group that was all about team big government. These guys were like the cool kids in school who always wanted to be in charge. They believed that a strong central government was essential for the newly formed United States to survive and thrive. Leading the Federalist charge were some of the biggest names in American history: Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, who later had second thoughts, and John Jay. These dudes were like the rock stars of their time, writing pamphlets and giving speeches that would make even the most jaded teenager crack a smile. Okay, maybe not. The Federalists argued that a weak central government, like the one under the Articles of Confederation, the first attempt at a government, was a recipe for disaster. They pointed to the economic chaos and infighting between the states as proof that things weren't working. They believed that a strong national government could provide stability, regulate trade, and defend the country from enemies both foreign and domestic. Basically, they wanted a government that could get things done. Give me liberty or give me more state power. Now, let's meet the scrappy underdogs, the Anti-Federalists. These folks were all about keeping the government on a tight leash. They were deeply suspicious of centralized power and feared that a strong national government would trample on individual liberties and states' rights. The Anti-Federalists were led by a diverse group of figures including Patrick Henry, George Mason, and Samuel Adams. Yes, that's Samuel Adams, the beer guy. They were united by their belief that the best way to protect freedom was to limit the power of the government. These guys were all about that "don't tread on me" energy. They argued that the Constitution gave too much power to the federal government and didn't do enough to protect individual rights. They feared that a powerful national government would become tyrannical and erode the sovereignty of the states. The Anti-Federalists were particularly concerned about the lack of a Bill of Rights in the original Constitution. They believed that a list of specific individual freedoms was essential to prevent the government from overstepping its bounds. Section 4. The Pamphlet Wars, when politics meant actually writing stuff down. Back in the 1780s, there wasn't Twitter, Facebook, or even cable news. Imagine that. No instant updates, no viral tweets, no 24-hour news cycle. The only way to spread ideas and influence public opinion was through the written word. So how did the Federalists and Anti-Federalists duke it out? They didn't have the luxury of televised debates or social media rants. Instead, they turned to the power of the pen. They wrote pamphlets, and lots of them. These pamphlets were the lifeblood of political discourse, the battleground where ideas clashed and public opinion was shaped. These weren't your grandma's knitting pamphlets, though. They were far from mundane. These were fiery political tracts filled with arguments, insults, and enough historical references to make your head spin. Each pamphlet was meticulously crafted, often filled with passionate rhetoric and sharp wit. They were designed to persuade, to provoke thought, and sometimes to incite anger. The most famous of these pamphlets were the Federalist Papers, a series of 85 essays that have stood the test of time. Written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, those guys again, these essays were a masterclass in political argumentation. Hamilton, Madison, and Jay weren't just writing for the sake of writing, they had a clear goal: to advocate for the ratification of the Constitution. The Federalist Papers were like the ultimate PR campaign for the Constitution, explaining its intricacies and arguing for its ratification. They broke down complex ideas into digestible arguments, making the case for a strong central government. Each essay tackled a different aspect of the Constitution, from the need for a unified executive branch to the importance of checks and balances. They were thorough, persuasive, and, most importantly, accessible to the average citizen. The Anti-Federalists weren't about to let the Federalists have all the fun. They fired back with their own pamphlets, each one a counter-argument to the Federalist Papers. They fired back with their own pamphlets, each one a counter-argument to the Federalist Papers. These pamphlets were just as passionate, just as detailed, and just as influential. Penned by the likes of Robert Yates, writing under the pseudonym Brutus, and Richard Henry Lee, who went by the Federal Farmer, these writings offered a starkly different vision for America. Writing under the pseudonym Brutus, Robert Yates warned of the dangers of a powerful central government. He argued that such a government would inevitably trample on the rights of individuals and states. Richard Henry Lee, writing as the Federal Farmer, echoed these concerns. He called for greater protections for individual liberties and more power for state governments. These writings warned of the dangers of a powerful central government and called for greater protections for individual liberties. They painted a picture of a government that was too distant, too powerful, and too prone to tyranny. The Anti-Federalists argued that the Constitution, as it was written, did not do enough to protect the rights of the people. They feared that, without significant amendments, the new government would become just as oppressive as the British monarchy they had fought to overthrow. These pamphlet wars were more than just intellectual exercises. They were a battle for the hearts and minds of the American people. Each side sought to convince the public that their vision for America was the right one. They were a battle for the hearts and minds of the American people. The future of the nation hung in the balance as citizens debated the merits of the Constitution and the role of government in their lives. The future of the nation hung in the balance as citizens debated the merits of the Constitution and the role of government in their lives. These debates were not confined to the halls of government. They took place in town squares, taverns, and homes across the country. As citizens debated the merits of the Constitution, they were not just discussing abstract principles. They were considering the very real impact that this new government would have on their daily lives. The role of government in their lives was a topic of intense debate. Would it protect their freedoms or infringe upon them? Would it bring order or chaos? These were the questions that Americans grappled with as they read and discussed these pamphlets. In the end, the pamphlet wars played a crucial role in shaping the future of the United States. They helped to inform and engage the public, ensuring that the decision to ratify the Constitution was made with a full understanding of its implications. The pamphlet wars were a testament to the power of the written word and the importance of informed public discourse. They remind us that democracy is not just about voting, it's about engaging in thoughtful, informed debate. So the next time you scroll through your social media feed, remember the pamphlet wars and the role they played in shaping our nation. In a world where information is at our fingertips, let's not forget the power of a well-crafted argument and the importance of thoughtful discourse. Section 5. Power to the people, sort of. How the Anti-Federalists shaped the Constitution. You might be thinking, if the Federalists were all about a strong central government, and they won the debate, then how did the Anti-Federalists influence the Constitution? It's a fascinating story of political maneuvering, passionate debates, and the enduring struggle for individual rights. Well, hold your horses, because here's the plot twist. The Anti-Federalists may not have gotten everything they wanted, but they played a crucial role in shaping the Constitution as we know it today. Their influence is woven into the very fabric of our nation's founding document. Their biggest victory? The Bill of Rights. This collection of the first 10 amendments to the Constitution was a direct result of the Anti-Federalists' insistence on protecting individual liberties. The Anti-Federalists were adamant that the Constitution needed to include explicit protections for individual liberties. They feared that without these safeguards, the new federal government would become just as tyrannical as the British monarchy they had fought to overthrow. They argued that without a Bill of Rights, the federal government would be free to trample on the freedoms that Americans had fought so hard to win. This was not just a theoretical concern, it was a deeply personal issue for many who had experienced the overreach of British rule firsthand. The Federalists initially resisted the idea of a Bill of Rights, arguing that it was unnecessary and even dangerous. They believed that the Constitution already limited the power of the federal government, and that listing specific rights might imply that the government had the power to infringe on any rights not explicitly mentioned. They feared that enumerating certain rights could lead to a narrow interpretation of those rights, potentially leaving other important freedoms unprotected. This was a significant point of contention during the ratification debates. However, the Anti-Federalists' arguments resonated with many Americans who were wary of a powerful central government. The memory of British oppression was still fresh, and the promise of guaranteed rights was a compelling argument, and the Federalists eventually realized that they needed to compromise if they wanted to get the Constitution ratified. The promise of a Bill of Rights was a crucial factor in securing the support needed for ratification. They agreed to add a Bill of Rights as amendments to the Constitution, and the rest, as they say, is history. These amendments have become some of the most cherished parts of our Constitution, ensuring protections for freedom of speech, religion, the press, and more. The legacy of the Anti-Federalists is a testament to the power of dissent and the importance of protecting individual liberties. Their insistence on a Bill of Rights has had a lasting impact on American democracy, shaping the way we understand and value our freedoms today. So, next time you think about the Constitution, remember the Anti-Federalists. Their voices, though often overshadowed by the Federalists, were crucial in ensuring that the rights of individuals were enshrined in the nation's most important document. Their legacy lives on in the freedoms we enjoy every day. In the end, the Constitution is not just a product of the Federalists' vision of a strong central government, but also a reflection of the Anti-Federalists' commitment to individual rights and liberties. It's a dynamic document, born out of compromise and shaped by the diverse voices of its time. And that, dear viewers, is how the Anti-Federalists shaped the Constitution. Their influence is a reminder that even in the face of defeat, persistence and advocacy for one's beliefs can lead to profound and lasting change. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. Stay tuned for more insights into the making of our nation.